Hello, vinyl community. Let's talk about 1980. Let's talk about our 15 favorite albums from 1980. A great year with a lot of great new music. It's kind of like a new era, just a lot of new sounds, a lot of new genres popping up, a lot of great debuts. So, without further ado, let's start off number 15 with the debut from the Psychedelic Furs, self-titled album. This introduced a whole new sound. They got a lot of airplay on K-Rock in LA. I Love India, Sister Europe, Imitation of Christ. Of course, they would go on to bigger success with songs like Love My Way and Ghost in You, which I love. But this is a solid debut. I always love Richard Butler's voice and just the whole sound of the band. They don't really sound like anybody else at this time. This is coming at number 15, the Psychedelic Furs debut record. Coming in at number 14 is Sandinista by The Clash. I'm kind of one in the camp where I think this would have made one solid single record. There's a lot of great songs scattered throughout the six sides, meshed in with a lot of dub and just a lot of experimentation. I think if they put like Magnificent Seven, Somebody Got Murdered, Hitsville UK, Police on My Back, The Call Up, Washington Bullets, and a few others, it would have made just a fantastic single record that probably could have stood up there with London Calling. But I think I got to give them credit for the experimentation. I mean, there's just a lot of stuff to take in here, and you cannot sit and listen to this all in one sitting. I'm sure there have been people who can make it through, but first time I did it, I could barely make it through. I think you have to separate it like one per night, one album per night, and you kind of just ingest all the sounds and all the experimentation. But I'm a big Clash fan. I always had a little soft spot for this album, and I dig it. So this is coming in at number 14, The Clash, Sandinista. Coming in at number 13 is the final album released in his lifetime, Bob Marley's Uprising. It stands up with a lot of his great albums like, the previous one, Survival and Kaya, all great albums. I think his entire discography, starting with Catch a Fire all the way through Uprising, is just fantastic. There's nothing less than a 4-star in that catalog. And maybe down the line I'll do like a little Bob Marley ranking from those years, the island years 73 to 80. But great songs on here. Ends with the Redemption song, one of the greatest songs ever written. Coming in from the Cold is great. Real Situation, Work. Has Could You Be Loved, which was a single. A great way to end his career. Unfortunately, we lost him too soon. But a great talent, great artist. Bob Marley and the Wailers, Uprising. Coming in at number 12 is David Bowie's Scary Monsters and Super Creeps. This is coming off the heels of his 3 previous trilogy albums, Low, Heroes, and Lodger. This kind of presents a different kind of sound for Bowie, kind of going into the 80s here. Love, Ashes to Ashes, that was the big single. Fashion's Cool, has a good groove. It's No Game, Teenage Wildlife, a lot of great stuff on here. Coming in at number 12 for me, personal faves from 80, David Bowie, Scary Monsters and Super Creeps. Coming in at number 11 is a lot of fans' favorite Talking Heads record, Remain in Light. I like it too, but I think I like Fear of Music just a tad bit more. This is probably their darkest record. There's some really dark shit on here, like The Overload. It's very dark. I always loved Houses in Motion, and of course, Once in a Lifetime is one of the greatest singles ever released in the 80s, and it's just in rock history. Important album here, very timeless sounding too. Coming in at number 11, Talking Heads, Remain in Light. Coming in at number 10 is the debut from the Dead Kennedys, Fresh Fruit for Rotting Vegetables. When I first heard this thing when I was about 15, I couldn't believe it. It was so unlike anything I'd ever heard, even in punk. The vocals completely unhinged, completely whacked out, awesome, from Giallo Biafra. Lyrics are great. So many just great short songs, Your Emotions, Chemical Warfare, California Herbalis, of course Holiday in Cambodia, Kill the Poor. Just a lot of really cool tunes here. This is coming in at number 10 on my list of 1980s albums. Dead Kennedys, Fresh Fruit for Rotting Vegetables, and of course this is a reissue. Coming in at number 9 is a personal fave. I really played a lot back then. A really great power pop record that not a lot of people know about. They were signed to Warner Brothers. The band's called Code Blue. I saw them about 3 times in 1980. I saw them at the Roxy, and then I saw them another time in late December of that year, opening for Thin Lizzy, if you can believe it. That was quite a combination. Luckily, they didn't get booed off the stage, but I was cheering them on. But this is just a solid power pop record. It has kind of like that early Who vibe, but Whispered Touch got a little airplay on K-Rock back in the day, but there's some just killer songs on here. Modern Times, Hurt, Face to Face, Burning Bridges. There's not a bad tune on here. Just great uplifting power pop. And the lead singer and songwriter, Dean Chamberlain, he was previously in the Motels, an early incarnation of the Motels, and then he formed Code Blue. But an excellent album. You can find it in a lot of bargain bins, so if you do see it and you like power pop, pick it up. It's fantastic. Code Blue. Coming in at number 8 is a completely different style of music. This is the final album of the first incarnation of Steely Dan Records, Gaucho. Has great songs on it, but my only critique is that the Steely Dan songs or Steely Dan records at this point were really beginning to sound really mechanical, unlike like Pretzel Logic and Katy Lied and Royal Scam, which had more of a human feel. These are very, very just like this, Of course, great, great musicianship and great songs, but I prefer the earlier stuff just a little more. But I love Babylon Sisters. It has the hit Hey 19. Probably my 2 favorites are Gaucho and Time Out of Mind. Third World Man ends the record. Great song, great solo on there, but love Steely Dan, huge fan. This is probably one of my least favorites though, but I'd still give it a solid 4. Steely Dan Gaucho coming in at number 8. Number 7 is the Jam's Sound Effects. This is one of my favorite Jam records. There are some obvious derivative moments on here, like the song Start with the bass part from Taxman. But there's some real original stuff on here that Paul Weller puts down. I love Man in the Corner Shop. I think that's one of the best Jam songs. That's Entertainment's great. Monday's great. The whole album is great. I love this album. This album and I think Setting Suns are my favorite Jam records. So this is a Jam coming in at number 7 of my personal favorites from 1980, Sound Effects. Number 6 is one of the best ska records ever released, The English Beat. I just can't stand it. I just can't stop it. Sorry about that. Starting off with Mirror in the Bathroom, it's just one great song after another. Hands Off, She's Mine, Two Swords, Twist and Crawl, Tears of a Clown. Their version's excellent. Rough Rider with Saxa blowing the sax. Click Click. And this particular edition, this American version, has Ranking Full Stop starting off side 2, where I think the British version has Big Shot, which is the second song. But just a solid, uplifting, great album. Good old Dave Wakeling and Ranking Roger doing the vocals. It has Best Friend, which got some airplay. Jackpot ends the record. A perfect record. One of my faves from that year and from the 80s. The English Beat, I just can't stop it. Coming in at number 5 is the debut from X. I'm a huge X fan. I love their first 4 albums. In fact, their first 3 albums to me are just solid 5-star records. There's just not a low point on the first 3 albums, including this one. Your Phone's Off the Hook, But You're Not starts it off. You got Ray Manzarek producing and playing a little bit of keyboards on here on Nausea. And the Unheard Music, which is one of my favorites on this record, has kind of a Doors vibe. The World's a Mess, It's in My Kiss is fantastic. They do a version of Soul Kitchen, a very classic record from that period. It's very timeless sounding too. It just rocks. Billy Zoom is awesome. And I think John Doe and Exene are just fabulous songwriters. And of course, DJ Bonebreak, solid as hell as a drummer. So Los Angeles X coming in at number 5. Number 4, we've got the classic XTC Black Sea. This is an original right here with the green cover. Here's the cover without the green sleeve. I'm sure you've seen it a million times, even on my videos. So I'm going to try not to tear it here. It's very flimsy because it's like over 40 years old. Here it is. I've mentioned this quite a bit, so I'll keep it short. It's a classic post-punk record, just kicking off with Respectable Street all the way to the end, just kicking ass. I love the guitar work from Andy Partridge and Dave Gregory on here. Colin Moulding's bass playing is amazing, and Terry Chambers drumming amazing. Um, just a solid record. I think one of the best early XTC records in their catalog. I don't listen to it as much as I used to. I kind of favor more the middle period now that I've gotten older. I like English Settlement and Mummer a lot, but a classic right here. Great album. Coming in at number 4, Black Sea XTC. And then coming in at number 3, a band before they became self-righteous, before they became pompous, before they became the gods of the world. There was a wonderful band with an incredible debut, U2 Boy. This album had so much impact on me for a couple of years, and I thought they were the greatest thing from about 81 to 83. I saw them 3 times in 1981 alone. I saw them, one of their first shows in LA at a little club in Reseda called the Country Club, where a lot of great acts played back then. And it just blew me away. I could not believe what a great show it was. The curtain rose, the whole stage was blue, and they opened up with the song The Ocean. Then I saw them a couple of months later at the Santa Monica Civic, and I remember Suburban Lawns opened for them, and that was a great show. And then I saw them at the end of the year when their album October came out, and I saw that show at the Hollywood Palladium with Romeo Void opening for them. But to me, this album really gets overlooked in their repertoire, I think because they became so huge and bloated and famous. To me, I will just go on the record saying I think it's one of the best debuts of the 80s and one of the greatest debuts of all time. I was a huge fan for a couple of years. This was probably on the turntable between 81 and 84 constantly. It's just one of those albums that just flows so amazing. And like, I like records that have a really good segue between songs and sequence and everything. And this album, every single song is amazing. I Will Follow, Twilight, NCAT Dub, Into the Heart, Out of Control on side 1. Side 2, you got Stories for Boys, The Ocean, A Day Without Me, Another Time, Another Place, The Showstopper, The Electric Company, and then it ends with Shadows and Tall Trees. And another thing of note, when this album came out, some critics were calling this the new Psych, if you can believe it. Because there, even when I was listening to it, it did have these Psych touches, like The Ocean, Shadows and Tall Trees, very, very Psych. But anyway, this was a great band at one time for me. I lost interest after about 1984, but for a couple of years there, when they first came out, I think nobody could touch them live. They were amazing. The Edge had a really original guitar sound, and the songs were just great, and they weren't pretentious. They were just hungry and just on fire. So I had to put this at number 3 because this album meant so much to me back then. And once in a blue, I'll still play it, and it still brings back this feeling of just a great time, and it's just a great, great album. So U2 Boy coming in at number 3. Number 2 is Peter Gabriel's third album, also known as Melt. This is my favorite Peter Gabriel album. His first 3 albums, kind of like his Genesis period, has a more cryptic kind of vibe, which is my favorite Peter Gabriel kind of vibe. After this, and I think on the So record, he became a little more like commercial and mainstream, that kind of thing. But he always had this kind of twisted thing about him, which I always liked, which he doesn't really have anymore. But this album here is just an absolute masterpiece from start to finish. Intruder, No Self-Control, I Don't Remember, Family Snapshot, and Through the Wire on side 1. Side 2, Games Without Frontiers, Not One of Us, Leading Normal Life, and ending with Biko. One of the greatest albums of the 80s, in my opinion. Just solid, still sounds amazing after all these years later. And I think this album, along with The Lamb Lies Down on Broadway, has Peter Gabriel's greatest vocals. I mean, just amazing vocals, and it's intense, and it's dark, and it's incredible. So this is coming in at number 2, Peter Gabriel's third album. And of course, number 1, I've featured this in a few other videos, is the First Pretenders album. An absolute masterpiece of a record, one of the greatest debuts ever. You just cannot beat that lineup of Chrissie Hynde, James Honeyman Scott, Pete Farndon, and Martin Chambers. They were just a kick-ass band. First 2 records were amazing. This album, start to finish, it's still sounds like it could have been recorded today. It's just an absolute timeless record. First time I heard Precious, I just couldn't believe it, And then Up the Neck and Tattooed Love Boys. And I think James Honeyman Scott is one of the most underrated guitar players of all time, probably because he only played on 2 albums, but the guy had talent to shine, and he really could have gone on to some great stuff. But luckily we had these 2 albums, and if you ever get a hold of any like live recordings from like 81, he really opens up, and he's a very soulful, very great lead guitar player. So this is my number 1, Pretenders from 1980, coming at number 1. What are your top 15 or 20 or 10 from 1980? I'd like to know in the comments section. Please press subscribe if you have not. I really appreciate you all for watching. Have a great night. Take care. Bye-bye.